So I have a really, really interesting poll that just came out a few days ago that I wanted to share with you guys. It's a CNN poll. The headline here is, most Republicans care more about picking a 2024 GOP nominee who agrees with them on issues than one who can beat Biden. So you're going to see in a second here, there's actually contradictory numbers in this poll, which makes it super fascinating to me. So on this point that like the Republican base is like, I don't really care if you're electable. I care if you agree with me. In a weird way, I'm jealous of that. I guess it's not even that weird. I'm jealous of that because my contention is that like left ideas are popular, and I would like it if the Democratic base was like more purity testing on the actual policies. And they're like, no, that's first and foremost is, will you do the things that we want you to do, which are the things that the people want you to do according to the polls? That's first and foremost. Unfortunately, the Democratic base has it reversed. It's like, oh, do I think you can beat the Republican? If you are, quote unquote, electable, I prioritize that over agreeing with us. And that's how you get, neoliberal after neoliberal, moderate after moderate. And by the way, that's like, I don't even think they're the most electable. I think that's a narrative pushed by corporate media, which your run-of-the-mill Democratic voter has now fallen for hook, line, and sinker, election after election. Hillary and Biden, it's like mass brainwashing and propaganda, like, oh yeah, Hillary's more electable than Bernie. And it's like, well, how'd that work out? It didn't. So I don't actually agree with that, but that's the Democratic base definitely has the opposite perspective. We care more about somebody who can beat the other guys than we do about, policy and agreeing with us. And so in a weird way, I think the Republicans are actually more correct on this. So anyway, let me give you some numbers. Just 30% of all Republicans and Republican leaners say the country's best days are still ahead. A dramatic shift from 2019 when Trump held the White House, and 77% were optimistic that the best was ahead. And lower even than the 43% who said the same number, said the same in the summer of 2016 prior to Trump's election. So look, that's just a standard. It's a very partisan divide there. When a Democrat's in power, the Republicans are like, the country's best days are gone. When it's a Republican power, they're like, yes, our best days are ahead. It's very partisan. I'm sure on that front, I'm sure you'd see the same with Democrats and Republicans. Then we have this. Most Republicans and Republican-leaning independents, 61%, say the country's increasing racial, ethnic, and national diversity is enriching American culture. So that's surprising. 61% are basically saying diversity is a good thing. But a sizable and growing share see it as a threat. The 38% who consider those changes a threat now is about twice as high as 4 years ago and similar to where the party stood in 2016. So 38% of Republican and Republican-leaning voters don't think that racial, ethnic, and national diversity is a good thing. They think it's a bad thing. Meanwhile, a broad 78% majority of Republican-aligned Americans say that society's values on sexual orientation and gender identity are changing for the worse. See, that's the impact of this new anti-trans mania that they're really leaning into, is that 78% of Republicans are like, I don't like what's happening with gender identity and stuff like that. 79% say the government is trying to do too many things that should be left to individuals and businesses, just a touch below the share who felt that way at the height of the Tea Party movement during Barack Obama's presidency. So let's get to the more interesting stuff here. The survey finds that most Republicans and Republican-leaning independents would choose a candidate who agrees with their views on major issues. 59% say that, over one who has a strong chance to beat Biden. 41% would say that. So that's what the headline is about now. Remember I told you that this is a contradictory poll as well? Well, they go on to ask, Trump versus DeSantis, who do you guys support? And this is actually the best poll for DeSantis in a while. Trump's at 40%, DeSantis is at 36%. So that is definitely within striking distance. Definitely. So you would think from the first fact I gave you that Republicans care more about do you agree with me than beating Biden, that this poll would be way more pro-Trump than it is. So look, that leads to a question. Now, this could be an outlier, right? It could be like, no, the other polls are more accurate. There's been a bunch that have Trump with a double-digit lead. If anything, it's kind of growing over DeSantis more and more. So this could be an outlier, or it might not be. And we might get 3 or 4 more polls that have it roughly in the same ballpark, or maybe DeSantis is within single digits of Trump. Okay. So if that's the case, to what do we attribute that? Well, if this is indeed a real phenomenon, I have the answer. The answer is the media. The answer is Fox within the past 3 weeks, maybe, they've really started to lean in to being more pro-DeSantis. And they've made a concerted effort with various segments to sort of kind of suck him off and get past Trump. And if this is a real trend and it's not just an outlier, it goes yet again to show you the power of the media. That they were afraid, and we saw this with the internal text messages that got leaked in the Dominion lawsuit. They were afraid of like, oh my God, we're going to piss off the audience and the audience is going to leave us. And like, so the hosts there are really, really audience captured, and that impacts them in a massive way. But my contention always has been, you don't have to be audience captured. You could take a position, stand on it, be bold, and then just move on, right? Like, you're the captain of the ship. You're not supposed to just crowd surf and go wherever your audience wants you to go, because then you're just a little cuck. So they have the potential, and they could actually lead and tell people what they really think and go in their own direction. And I've told you there were 2 or 3 different occasions where they really could have put the knife in Trump and twisted it. You know, because he was done. Like after the midterms, done. Right after January 6th, done. And they let him keep creeping back in because they were going a little soft on him. They were still doing some positive segments here and there. And then eventually, you know, they cucked to him again. But you didn't have to do that. You could have taken one day, said, here's why, you know, this is wrong, or he's done, stick the knife and twist it, then just don't talk about him ever again. And then just go on to do your segments where you suck off DeSantis, who's obviously your next favorite. And then eventually that would take hold. Like, they have more power than they realize they have. They don't have to be audience captured. Sure, will you maybe lose a tiny percentage of your audience, 5%, 10%? Of course. Maybe worst case scenario, 15%? Fine. You'd still be number one, Fox News would be, out of all the cable news outlets. And you could actually have control over the Republican base. Well, again, if this poll's an outlier, that's a big if, or excuse me, if this poll's real and not an outlier, and that's a big if, it could be an outlier, then if they keep going down this path, they could effectively take DeSantis, who's flailing now, and prop him up and get him across that finish line. Look, to make an analogy, we saw this on the Democratic side in 2016. The media propped up Hillary and held her up and put her on their shoulders and ran her across the finish line. Then the DNC, of course. But like, it was all just wall to wall. If you're anti-Bernie, pro-Hillary, it's like they really drove home that narrative, and it had an impact on more normie people. And there's some normie Republican voters in that Fox audience who will be impacted if they really go all in on DeSantis. So funny enough, at a time when Trump is being way more of an effective politician than he was previously, hammering DeSantis on the fact he wants to cut Medicare and Social Security, went to East Palestine, showed up, got the McDonald's and water. The whole time, DeSantis not really landing body blows on Trump and not doing a great job campaigning. So Trump really came into his own more and is back in 2016 campaign style. DeSantis is not doing all that well. But if this poll is real, DeSantis is in striking distance, even with the other candidates in the race. I think Nikki Haley had 6%, Mike Pence had 6%, but DeSantis is still in striking distance of Trump. That would all be attributable to the fact that he's just getting puff pieces done on Fox News day in and day out. Which is quite a thing if you think about it, how much power the media has. Anyway, all right, guys, that's the show. I love you very much. Everybody do me a big favor. Click like and subscribe to the channel. We are trying to get to 1 million subs. We are so close. I could taste it. I could feel it. I could sniff it. I could do all sorts of dirty things to it. But this is getting awkward, so I'm going to stop going down this path. Subscribe to the channel. Get us to 1 million subs. Going to do a celebratory stream when we get there. And yeah, that's all I got for you today, man. Support the show on Patreon. Link in the video description box below. Much love to everybody who does that. You guys make the show work. Never talk to advertiser. Never talk to any company. We do it bottom up, grassroots style. So please consider supporting if you haven't yet. And if you can't, it's okay. I still love you to death. I still love you to death. Thank you to everybody who supports us on Substack as well. And again, remember, you can listen to, if you want to listen to the show as a podcast, you always have that opportunity now. You could go on over to Spotify. We post the full shows every day. All right, guys. I love you very much. I'll talk to you soon. Peace. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal, Kyle, and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.